Okay, welcome back to another very great episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the hot city of Angels. With me, of course, is a great friend. I've known him for almost 15 years. To me, the greatest author and the best researcher. And he also was my co host almost 10 years ago is when we started, which we'll do something later on when it comes to that in March 2023. Now, the third person on with us, I'm going to let Preston introduce her.
We're joining us today is Dolly Saffron. She's the subject of my latest book, Symmetry, a True UFO Adventure. And she is a fully conscious UFO contactee. Does not need hypnosis to recall her encounters.
Yep.
Has had encounters since 10 months, and it's still ongoing.
And that to me is one of the most remarkable things, as I was telling you, both of you actually, but you more, Preston, while she was figuring things out, is aside from Jim Sparks, I don't really know very many people who have full conscious recall. There are very few and far in between, but more so the amount of contacts and what you got to see, Dolly, were like amazing. Now, let's go back. When did you first realize? I know you had a near-death experience. Then you realized after you had an incident where your father finally asked you, not in front of your mother, what was going on. But you had realized, you had met Mama, the ET, years before. So take us back to when you first realized something was going on.
Well, I sort of always knew that I was different. I mean, it's hard to not figure that out. I mean, I was the one in the house who could levitate. I was the one who was telekinetic. I was the one who was psychic. Strange things happened around me. I saw things all the time, didn't know what they were. So when I met Mama when I was 5, it left an indelible ding in my head. I knew that I was involved in something. I just didn't know what it was. My mom spent years telling me to forget it. I'm dreaming, blah, 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 blah. And at one point I started thinking, well, maybe I'm crazy. Something's wrong. And I became desperate to figure it out. And it took me about 6 months of trying. And when I was 14, that's when I hit it.
Now, Preston, I was going to ask you to talk about how you met her and when you realized which one of her stories was the one that made you realize, oh my God, she is completely different than anybody I've ever spoken to, and decided to dedicate not just a volume, but an entire book on her.
Yeah, I'm so excited because this is the first time I've gotten to write an entire book on just one single person's experiences. I mean, there are a few books that were like UFOs over Topanga was all about that wave, but this is different. And just real quick, my heart goes out to all contactees who go through this struggle. Dolly says, am I crazy or not? I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. No, you guys are not crazy.
Right.
But yeah, Dolly reached out to me in 2016. And this is so interesting to me because I'm contacted by people all the time. And they start talking to me and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, you saw UFO. What happened? You had missing time and so forth. And some just want to talk, some have questions, some are desperate for help. They are weeping.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dolly was wary at first. She was kind of testing the waters with me to see how I would respond. I called her back right away when she reached out. And bit by bit, she revealed more and more. And it took me a good year before I'm like, wow, I think that this is the most extensive case I've ever heard. But yeah, it took a while. It wasn't overnight, and I'm not sure which story it was exactly that really tipped the scales for me. But one thing I want to say that's just so interesting is how and why she reached out to me.
Yes,
because she was searching. She wanted to go public. The contact experience is being badly misrepresented in the media. And I had already come to this conclusion. I'm like, this is not the terror-filled, horrifying experience that's being portrayed to be. This is not their agenda to hurt or scare people. And it's the opposite. They're healing people. They're
rescuing.
Setting them down in the pilot seat and showing them how to fly the craft. They are bringing them up and showing them, the moon or Saturn. I've got lots of cases like this. And along comes Dolly saying these kinds of things. and oh, let me just backtrack. She wanted to go public, and couldn't find a good researcher because there's a lot of them out there, and they all have their darn agenda.
Yes,
you know,
and skew the stories.
And some of them are absolutely on my naughty list. Shame on you, because I know they're lying.
Yes.
And I won't name names except if they're deceased, like Phil Klass. I mean, like, come on, or Donald Menzel.
Yeah.
But
the one that worked at Harvard, the astrophysicist, but at the same time was part of MJ12, that guy. Real quick, everybody out there, the book that Preston wrote about Dolly's experiences, Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure. This signed copy by Preston will be given to one lucky viewer in the live chat today. We'll figure out who and when near the end of it. So just stay on here, drop us a like and a subscribe, and please share. Now, I'm going to ask you.
Well, let me finish real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dolly was looking for a researcher, couldn't find one, and complained to the ETs. She's like, there's nobody out there. These guys are all weirdos. They're liars. And they said, well, we've got someone in mind for you. And his name is Preston. And his last name is Dennett. And here's how you spell it. And
the ETs told you that, Dolly?
Yeah,
that is amazing. This actually goes in line with, I believe it was chapter 10 when you talked about ET knows every human on this planet, right?
Yes, they do. They do.
This, Preston, me and you were just talking about this the other day, and I know I've said this to you so many times or asked you over the years. Do you think that my obsession with ufology is because I may have contacts that I don't remember? And you said probably is the so. When I read that line, Dolly, it really struck a chord with me. Yeah, I wanted to plug that book in. Now, Preston, what's the first thing you asked her?
Tell me everything.
Yeah.
Well, basically.
We could spend 12 hours, and I know that won't be enough. You know what I mean? Because there's just so much amazing stuff. One chapter is hours. You know.
I've learned, through the years, you don't ask leading questions.
Yes.
You just allow the person to tell their story, what they're comfortable sharing, and so she basically started out sharing her experience at age 14 and did not go into the onboard segment at all with me. And she ended up, being in a chapter of my previous book, Onboard UFO Encounters.
Volume 1 or 2? Or
was just one volume. But
okay.
She didn't go into, and at that point, I was only beginning to realize how extensive her experiences were. But yeah, it was her experience really at age 14, which entranced me, because that's how it all started for her. But you read the book. I don't even know where to begin.
Now, Dolly, I was going to ask you this. I believe it was age 14 when you started to have the flush of memories. You told your father, but because your mother wouldn't hear it. But he told you something interesting. And can you tell people what he said and also who he was? Because he worked for something pretty reputable that you can't discount.
Correct. My father was an airborne ranger. He was an architect, military engineer. He worked for NASA, as well as many other things. His last job was actually the restoration of Fort Benning when he retired. He retired and he kept working on Benning to get the restoration complete. When he was a young boy, about my age, he and his brother, they lived on a farm in Wisconsin. And they grabbed a turkey and some beer without permission and went camping. And they were going to cook the turkey. And both of them were farm boys, which I find amazing that they didn't do something. They plucked it, but they didn't pull the packet out of the guts, the guts out. And they spit it and they started cooking it over a fire. It exploded all over them. They were not going to waste that turkey. So they went to the lake that they were on and cleaned themselves up because they were all in guts. And while they were standing there on the other side of the lake that they were at, they saw light coming up. And it went up over the lake and it hovered over the lake for a second or two and then shot over to the top of their heads. Just shot. He said 1 second it was in the middle of the lake and the next it's over their heads. And they were looking up at it and he said a blue-white light came down on them. His brother was standing right behind him. He couldn't see him. And the next thing he knows, he passed out and he woke up on board. And he was with the ETs. They were talking to him. They asked him about his life, what his interests were. They knew he was destined for something, and they wanted to direct him toward it, encourage him, because he was a poor boy on a poor farm. You know, how do you educate yourself like that? And he was special anyway, because my dad was seriously dyslexic, and he had to teach himself architecture. He is one of the, I think he's the only architect that I know of who's completely self-taught. He passed all his state boards. He was registered in 26 states. And his drawings from his test were actually used in Miami. Miami-Dade County loved his drawings so much from the test, they used them in their park. He remembers seeing them off and on throughout the years. And
the ETs or the crafts?
The ETs, both. And when I was growing up, he wasn't around a lot, but when he was, for things that were happening, he was the calmest one in the room. Everybody else was freaking out, and he was always dead rock calm. And he would take me to work with him a lot. I used to go to NASA a lot and sit and, you know, enjoy whatever he had me to enjoy while we were there. If he was in meetings, I stayed in his office and just looked out the window. The Assembler building is my friend. I love that thing. They took me to it. I got to stand up against it and look up, and very, very cool. I got to see things being assembled over the years. It was very neat.
The ETs, or I don't know how to describe this. The craft is AI and has a name. Am I right? The one that you interacted with, mostly the one that showed you how to fly? Or
he's a little bit different than an AI being, an AI gray. They're autonomous beings, but they can think, but they're not conscious at all. Talata is a disembodied, non-corporeal, fifth-dimensional entity. He is able to indwell the craft, which is made to be biological to accept him. Like we are accepted by our own bodies. Yes. He can go into that craft. The reason is I don't even like calling it technology. Their abilities, their knowledge is so far in advance of us all that everything they do is psychically run. Okay. And they're capable of immense things that you don't realize they're doing. One of the things, even Lazar said this when he got on board the craft that he was looking at, he said, there's nothing in there. There's nothing that's connected. Yeah.
Bob Lazar. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Nothing's connected in there. What the heck? You know?
No wires, no
right.
skirt,
And it's true. It's not at all. It's psychically run. And Talata is actually embodied in that craft. He can make that craft do anything. He is the heart and soul of it. And all craft are indwelt by beings. That's how they
a lot of contactees have said the same thing to me. They felt like the craft itself was alive. And like almost empty inside.
Yeah, thank you. Aside from being almost empty inside, and Preston, because you've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands at this point, of people who have been on board, it's not, Dolly, you can say that, I think you said this book too, the craft is smaller from the outside, but you go in, it seems bigger, right? And then when they
expand at will. He expands the craft at will. He has a certain amount of space that he can create, make the craft move out and expand. And yeah, when they move people on, he gets bigger on the inside to accommodate, because it's not, everything is shorter. He'll even expand for me because I'm tall. Okay. And I'd be banging my head on everything and not sit in the chair right. So he fixes it for me. They accommodate me when I'm on board. So.
Another thing you say in the book, again, Preston, I know you've heard many times, as have I, is that they have the ability to be transparent when they want you to look outside. And just like you wrote, or Preston, you wrote in the book, quoted from Dolly, is that it's not like you're looking through glass. It's literally as if there's nothing there. And I thought that to be fascinating too, because this, again, just fits with everybody else's story.
Yeah. Now, if you were to combine a jellyfish with a cuttlefish, that's what you got. A transparent can color up at any time and make itself look like anything it wants, period.
Yeah, there's one account in the book where they had taken a lady on board, and they did that. They turned the skin of the craft transparent, and she leapt back and fell right on her butt, freaking out. Because she
ended up on her butt. Yeah.
Poor thing. But yeah, I've heard that so many times. People are like, well, it didn't have windows like you'd think of it. It just turned transparent.
Right.
The two ages I wrote down that are of importance are age 5 when you first met Mama, right? And
Yes.
then age 14. I believe also in the book you mentioned age 6 was your near-death experience, or you just got really sick.
Yeah, it was just after I met Mama. I came down with infectious mononucleosis. They don't know how I got it. They checked everybody. I was the only one that got it. And I lost about, I went down to skeletal. Let's put it that way. I couldn't eat. I started bleeding internally, and then my spleen ruptured and I expired. And the doctor just happened to be in the house with me when it happened. And I don't know if he brought me back or I came back and was brought to be back. I was gone long enough to know where I was, to have heard somebody talking to me and be told things. So before I
Now,
came back.
I'm going to ask both of you this. Near-death experiences, I've had one. I died during a coma. But other people who've had near-death experiences literally come back and have this plethora of knowledge about, astrophysics, about things that are way ahead of its time. And I'm assuming that kind of happened to you, or is it something, Preston? I'm asking both of you. Does having an NDE trigger something in your brain, in your pineal gland, to be more receptive?
Yeah, 100. I'll start. All right. Yeah, 100%. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, or no, what was it? Kevin Ring, that's right, wrote a book on this. And there's been some movement in the UFO community to try to equate these two experiences as being like the same. And no, they're not. They just have commonalities to them. Being taken on board a UFO is in some ways like a near-death experience. It's spiritually transformative. It's like going into a different dimension. And yes, it can absolutely open you up. Daniel Brinkley talked a lot about this.
Yes.
Tom Sawyer, he's another famous near-death experiencer, not to Mark Twain Tom Sawyer, but another guy who became very interested in astrophysics. And this is something we see with contactees. This is a major ET agenda, and I think this is one of the purposes, or certainly side effects, of a near-death experience.
You want to know why?
Please, yes.
Okay. Your brain, if it's not used to being psychic and hearing your higher consciousness talking, your astral mind, which is really just you, okay? And you're cut off from it for long periods of time and not using it, kind of shuts it down. An NDE gives your physical mind a chance to hear your astral mind talking. It links up in that moment, and it's a sort of like the phone is ringing but nobody's answering, and then suddenly boop, you answer. You don't just hang that phone call up, it stays on. And that's what's going on. Yeah.
Yep. And they start having telepathy and precognition, and start having out-of-body experiences, and can see spirits.
And they could
levitation.
I'm assuming, thank you. You just answered my question. I was just going to say, can they levitate things? And you just said, and including themselves, right?
Yes,
obviously.
I've done it. Yeah.
Now, obviously, age 5, 6, and 14 are important. Preston, did you identify another pivotal year in her experiences?
Well, there were stages, certainly. I would say age 19 was huge, because at age 14, they said basically, okay, we're so glad you woke up. You're remembering things. This is great. This is pretty unusual. We're so happy. Would you like to work with us? What would you like to do? And this is something that they offer people, like, what area would you like to explore? We can work with animals. You can work with exploring. You can do all these kinds of things. And Dolly's like, I want to fly. And so they trained her for the next 4 or 5 years. And at age 19, she basically graduated. They put an implant in her hand, which allows her to psychically connect to this little round energy ball.
Electromagnetic energy ball, yeah.
And that was a pivotal time for her, because then her dreams came true for real. And they said, okay, sit down in the pilot seat. We did a whole chapter on this flight training.
Yep.
And I really wanted to get into it, because every time we do an interview, I'm like, Dolly, you didn't tell me this. Gosh darn it. Why I didn't get to... She's like, listen, I've had a lifetime of this. It's hard to remember all of this and get it all in. I mean, we're going to have to put a sequel out. But yeah, her experiences with learning how to fly the craft, and then you can describe it, Dolly, going to another planet for the first time is incredibly inspiring and awesome.
Now, I'm assuming it's also instantaneous, right?
In what way?
For traveling from, say,
Yes.
from Earth
When we're
to
traveling in
Saturn.
the solar system, it's not instantaneous. It's very fast, though. But if we're going interdimensional and we're going outside our galaxy somewhere else, yes, it's in an instant, less than a second. Yes.
You mentioned that they're from the constellation Orion, but there's a line you won't cross about their homes. Is it because they told you that, or is it just because, morally you don't want to?
Human beings, they are our progenitors. We're them, they're us, we're one. Okay. Now think about this. Critically think about this. You're their kids and you're smart as hell. Okay. And there's nothing you can't accomplish in your lifetime if you want to. They know this. Before you're ready to know, you shouldn't know. See what I'm saying?
I see.
Okay.
I see. Yeah. We're immature. We haven't gotten to that progressed yet.
Right.
Now, Preston, I'm going to give you the next question because I have so many to ask. So rather than me throwing things out of the order, what do you think is the next topic we should ask Dolly on? Because if not, I'll just pick up on the next thing I have listed in my head and on paper.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting when you interview Dolly, she can share all the knowledge she's learned from the ETs, or she can talk about her adventures. And I like the adventures personally. I would love if you would describe, the experience where they took you to Saturn and the moon, because I've heard that from other people.
Yes.
And I just think that's so glorious.
Well, the day that I woke up, when I was on board and I got over myself, because I was having moments there, when I first got on board, everything was coming back to me. It physically made me ill. I threw up and I started shaking. I went into shock, emotional shock. And they got me cleaned up. They let me walk around the craft to reorient myself. I started touching things and, physically grounding to where I was. I got to see my quarters, everything. I even found my brush in my quarters. My favorite
the
brush,
right?
Yeah. Yeah. The one that disappeared at home that I wondered where the heck did it go. It brought me back up to the what you would call the helm. They call it the place of movement. They do not call it a helm. Sat me in the seat and started talking to me. And when they heard what I wanted to do, and I was taking a chance when I said it, okay, because they knew I was already interested in astronomy and zoology and biology, all of that, okay? And I never told anybody I wanted to fly yet. I'd been in lots and lots of flights. I'd been in the cockpit at the controls, allowed to hold the stick or the you don't call it a wheel, it's the guide. I knew how to do the flaps and stuff like that on conventional airplanes, but I'd never said to anybody, I want to fly. Okay. And then they said, what do you want to do? I was like, can I fly? I want to fly. Yeah. Okay. And I didn't think they'd say yes. And they did. And he said, well, we're going to take a trip. We're going to go out. And he said, you're sitting in the seat. They made sure, and he handed me a device. And he said, because I remembered how they fly. I know it's psychic. Hold on. I don't know if you heard that or not. And
no.
Okay.
I heard you. Yeah.
Okay. So he said it reads my mind and it would go directly to him, and he would do what I tell him to do psychically using this device as a crutch. Okay. I'm like, okay. And he said, we're going to go out. They gave me a little brief on ascension declination, what I understood about flying already. I'm a smart kid and I was already trying to study it on my own. And so I headed out and he was guiding me the whole way. And we got to Saturn. I knew we were going there. I wasn't ready for what I saw. It was a shock. Saturn is huge. I mean, huge. And the rings make it even bigger. And it's full of moons. And the color, there's no way to describe that. What you see in photographs does not do it justice. I don't know if it's my eyesight and that caused the difference in what I was seeing on paper or film, but it blew up in my face. It's incredible, the color that's on this planet and around it and on the moons. And I'm looking at the rings and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can see detail that you can't see in a picture, okay? The composition of the rings alone is mighty magnificent. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on in those rings. There's boulders, there's different kinds of metals, in rock, whatever. There's ice crystals, there's ice ocean chunks, stuff like that. You see round balls of ice running in a river of ice. I mean, it's crazy. And then there's some places that are wide open in between those rings. And they taught me about them and how they formed and why Saturn is different from the other planets, but not that much different. Saturn, there are a bunch of our planets, especially the gas giants, that do have rings around them. You just can't see them because they're minuscule compared to Saturn.
I remember another point you were talking about is a lot of planets are just covered with fresh water or water, and then there's small islands, dotted around.
In the universe, yes.
Yeah, in Saturn or its moons, did you see anything like that, or let me up it a notch? Did you see any form of life?
No, Saturn has no life. There's some moons of Saturn that do have lots of water on them. They even have water volcanoes. There's probably microscopic life on those moons, but it's far enough away from the sun that it's not going to be that great. It's very minuscule. Okay, it's just rudimentary. Things going on. They have one of the satellites, one of the moons of Saturn goes in the opposite direction. It's not going the same way.
Oh, that's very interesting. Because you know what? Astronomy and physics would show it would go the same way as others. So that's very, very interesting.
This is information you can actually figure out. You can ask an astronomer; they know about it.
Yeah, okay, I looked it up, and I can tell you, when Dolly was describing this, I'm like, yes, this is what Jay Gardner told me. This is what Raymond Fowler also experienced. Ray Fowler of Betty Andreasson fame had this experience. I think it was age 8 with Jay Gardner. I think he was 12. Leo Sprinkle had this experience. I have since had 2 other people contact me and said, yep, they did that to me too.
Yeah. Saturn also tilts on its axis differently from most of the other planets. It's a very unique place. They were explaining it. It was my first point of contact that I was being taught about because it is example A of what happened to our solar system a long time ago. Mars was in the catbird seat. Earth was a sister planet to it a little bit further. I guess it would be a little bit further in. It had less gravity than Mars.
If I'm not mistaken, based on from what I read, so we have Mars, we have Earth, and then we had a sister planet in between the two, right?
Yeah. And it's no more. Yeah, it's gone. It got blown up. Mars took a huge impact. It's like being hit by a cue ball. It blew out the entire outside of the planet itself. It's dead. It killed it. I mean, it disrupted everything. It murdered it. It is dead core. It has no magnetosphere, nothing. Nothing's going on that planet except that it's outgassing. It does have some volcanic activity, but it's only because the rocks are grinding together every now and then, and it erupts. But that's a part of outgassing. That's what that process is.
It's been inferred by a few people that we come from Mars. For instance, our circadian rhythm is better adapted to Mars' day cycle versus ours. Different things like that. Preston, have you heard that before?
Yeah, that's kind of the buzz in the UFO community right now, that perhaps we came from Mars, and Dolly learned that directly from the ETs.
From them, yeah.
We originated
and shown. I'm like, describe, because they showed her images of, what this was all like.
Quick, while there are people here in the chat, in about 45 minutes, anybody who wants to ask a question, please do so in capital letters. And if it's relevant, I'll definitely ask it. And now there's a lot more people here. One of you lucky people will be the winner of Symmetry, a true UFO adventure, written by Preston Dennett, of course, about Miss Dolly Saffron. So this will be great. 1 in 40 people. That's a number we've talked about so many times. And I remember years ago, when I first heard that, Preston, you talked about in your own group of friends and people you asked around, and you saw not only is that number true of 1 in 40 people being abducted, contacted, but it's probably higher than that. Dolly, you've actually said it's 100% now, which is even
every human being on this earth is contacted. You might not be contacted on a regular basis, but they know who you are. You've been looked at. You've been assessed for your health. They watch everybody on the planet for that. We have been in excursion with our poles, and our magnetosphere has been down for a long time, and it lets in lots of gamma radiation, and that absolutely destroys your DNA. Okay, it unravels your DNA, and they bolster us up. They're keeping us as healthy as they possibly can without directly interfering with our life paths, our karma.
Now, you do mention that obviously we need to get our stuff together, detoxify our bodies, clean our get our pineal cleanse working. Is that a way we can initiate contact, or is it possible? And I'd like both of you to talk about this.
It's a way to help your pineal gland function properly because it's toxic right now. Most everybody's got a toxic gland.
Calcified, yeah.
Right. And one of the biggest problems with that is fluoride. Fluoride is a type of calcium, and it clogs it up really bad. Nobody should be eating or drinking fluoride at all.
That's why I actually got fluoride-free toothpaste. I've been using that for the last 9
You also have to watch out about using aluminum. Aluminum is a heavy metal, and it does pass through the brain barrier, and it can mess your brain up really bad. That can mess with your pineal gland as well. It can also give you dementia, okay? Ooh. There's a lot of dementia that the root cause of it can be heavy metals in the brain. That is one of the root causes of dementia.
ETs are all about this. They told one lady she had complete kidney failure, and they cured it, brought her back on board, and they said, here's your liver. Look at all these black spots. This is because you're drinking too much Diet Cola. Stop drinking Diet Cola. It's not good for you.
All that is bad, whether it be regular sugar coda, which is not real sugar anymore, as we know in American. It's high fructose corn syrup, but none of it. Look at the ingredients; they're not healthy. If you want to buy orange juice from the store, it's really not fresh squeezed orange juice when you look at the rest of it. So we have to return to what we were a couple hundred years ago before Monsanto and all these other companies.
It's a big part of their agenda. They are concerned.
Yeah, and it's scary, but almost like to keep us dumb, stupid, enslaved, and in some way what they don't want us to live. It kind of get the impression that they're okay with allowing a lot of us to die, so the elite few are easier to control. I know this is
no, I wouldn't put it that way. They respect our decisions.
No, I'm talking about Monsanto.
He's talking about the bad guys here.
Yeah,
all right. You freaked me out for a second. I'm like, no. The ETs will allow us to make our own mistakes.
Yes.
They're not going to step in and solve all our problems. That would be even a bigger mistake because we would not learn.
I was just going to say that's how we learn growing up, from being children to now. Every day, we are always learning something. So by them doing that, Dolly, I mean, is the way to go if you want to teach anyone anything.
We were put here because we came from a place originally, even before the solar system, where we were young and evolving humans, and they gave us better environment in which to, and more things at our disposal to come up and evolve. And that's how that works. We weren't born from their loins on their planet. We come from somewhere else, and they gave us the opportunity, and they cherished us enough to know that we're all related. They are our relatives, to watch us grow and watch us come up and learn. They fully expect us. They're hoping that we were a lot farther along than we are now. They expected us to be, but we have an element on this planet that has got other ideas, and they're out of control.
Very out of control. That's the scary part. You did talk about, I want to ask if, Preston, please correct me if this question is wrong. You mentioned, I think it was Earth in the past where you were shown and it had higher oxygen but less gravity. Was that Earth, or am I thinking of another planet or environment that you're at?
Yes. Earth.
It was,
Earth,
okay.
Yeah, before Mars got bashed into oblivion and that other planet was demolished, Earth was a planet where the dinosaurs were roaming, I think that you all call them reptilians, evolved here with the dinosaurs. I think they survived it somehow. And they're still evolving. They're very intelligent beings, and they're coming up. And I've only seen one in my life. It was not a happy day. I was shocked that it shocked me, and I've avoided them ever since. But I know that I may be called upon someday to help get them out of here. they deserve to live just like we do.
Yeah, the science
They
is
are.
good that Earth had a
Yeah.
lesser gravity for sure.
Right.
All the life on Earth was much bigger. All the plants, all
The
the animals,
dinosaurs. Oh
Right.
yeah.
Everything.
giants
It's
on
like
Earth.
that in other planets. The planet that I was taught on has way less gravity as well. You breathe better. I have extremely largely developed lungs. My lungs are huge. And all my doctors have asked me, why are your lungs so big? You know, what the hell? And it's probably because I was breathing easier, not have it as being pressured as hard as everybody else.
I'm
Yeah.
just glad you mentioned other planets. There's a couple questions I want to ask both of you on that. There is one question in the chat. It's early enough, but I want to ask it real quick though. I'm going to plug in first of all, Preston's channel, because in case people drop off. First of all, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe and notifications. Leave a thumbs up and a like. And remember, one of you will get this book. Same thing with Preston. What's your channel real quick, Preston?
It's just my name.
Preston Dennett.
UFOs in the Paranormal with Preston Dennett. But if you type in my name, it should take you there.
Now, Reiki Lady asks, what can we do to decalcify? I'm assuming it's in regards to our pineal gland. So I'll go with Dolly and then Preston.
Stop drinking city water. It's full of fluoride. Buy purified water, or which is even better, would be spring water if you can get it. Alkaline water is good too. When you bathe, let your water, fill your tub up, let your water sit out for an hour or two, you know, and then heat it up gently, you know, with 1 pot of hot water, because the amount of chlorine in it and the fluoride in it gets absorbed through your skin in the heat of the water. So you got to bathe, don't shower with it. You're going to shower if you've got a well or whatever.
Yeah.
Have to be careful because your skin will absorb almost anything. It's very, open pores.
So
eat organic foods.
Right.
Meditate,
right?
Work on psychically, developing your awareness, exercise that muscle. There are ways to do that.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of decalcifying,
it's a muscle, right? Clearly the pineal gland is a muscle.
Okay. No, it's actually the pineal gland itself is formed exactly like your eyeballs. The only thing it's minus is a lens. It receives transmissions from your brain, and it can transmit out as well as receive in. It can transmit alpha, beta, theta, gamma, delta, just like we do. And that's how we speak to one another psychically. That gland is transferring that out. It's one of your primary senses that you're able to use. And it's your telephone call from your higher consciousness, who you really are, to your physical brain. Because your physical brain doesn't know anything unless your consciousness is talking to it.
Yeah, and remember, ETs communicate telepathically. So when someone has contact, this is automatically being, exercised and worked on. And contactees,
right?
Contactees start becoming very telepathic.
Yes.
Contactees, as a rule, are empathic, psychic, and this is, you can see this generationally.
Yeah.
Dr. Roger Lear, bless his heart. I mean, he's passed away, and may he rest in peace. It's been years now. He told me an amazing story that he believes the Tower of Babel story in the Bible was.
You're correct.
Yeah, so
it's where they shut us off.
Yeah, where they shut off our telepathy and made us speak with our
Yeah, but it wasn't ET that did it. It was us. Yep. They started using slavery, massive amounts of slavery. They started beating people, starving people. They did everything they could to make you miserable and misbegotten so that you could not use that gland. Nope. That's true.
Who was it in power that would do such a thing? An emperor or something like that? Or just some evil dictator?
I think that evil spreads like we spread joy. Evil spreads itself as well. It's almost like a disease. Joy can be considered a good disease, like a good antibody. And evil or negativity can be a bad antibody. Okay, and we do think out. We do help one another by sending good thoughts, prayers, whatever to one another. That energy does go from person to person to person, and I think that they worked very hard to create a force strong enough to just take us all out, take our glands out and start feeding us bad, beating us all the time. It was bad.
Yeah, we forgot that we are immortal beings. We started living in fear. Fear is a guiding force in our lives. Right. This is another thing we really have to work on and realize that the universe is safe. We're not going to die. Yeah. There is no such thing as death.
Years ago, I've always believed that humans can't just exist on Earth. And I also believe that dinosaurs are probably living on other planets and other solar systems and possibly other galaxies, right?
Yes, yes.
So you even mentioned a number, I believe it was 20,000 other planets or solar systems that have humans there, right, Dolly?
More than that, yes.
Yeah.
It's astronomical. I mean, in our entire universe, think about it. How many galaxies are in the universe? And then in our galaxy alone, there are at least just our galaxy more than 20,000 habitable planets. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, humanoid is the universal form throughout the universe.
Yeah,
And-
two eyes, two arms, two legs, right?
Right.
And many people, Travis Walton is one example who see human-looking ETs, and that just
Right.
raises all kinds of questions right there.
Yeah.
You know?
And speaking of, okay, not the 100% human, like you mentioned that Travis has seen, and so have others. In some of the depictions you have here, Dolly, let me see if I could find the right one. I believe it says Mama. I know she's
Yeah.
she has no hair, but her eyes, they're similar to ours, except just much larger. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, most of the grays are all blue-eyed, blue-green-eyed. Some of them have like a golden color eye. That's rare though. They are mostly they have the recessive, and it's because of the light quality they see. They see a different light range than we do. Okay, they can see into the ultraviolet, and they can, you know, the other way around. They have to protect their eyes all the time, and when you see them, they're wearing lenses over their eyes to protect them from the light. I've had to have surgery on my eyes because I'm a hybrid, and I suffered terribly because of that, and I can't go out now with that. Well, I've never really should. I did when I was younger, stupidly, but yeah, I have a real problem with light. I'm photophobic eyes. My whole pupil will shut down and go, no, can't handle it. So yeah.
Hugely common among contactees, light sensitivity. Yeah. It's a real problem.
Interesting. That's new to me, but at the same time, I'm not shocked or surprised. Preston, in your research of contactees, abductees, I know you hate to use that term, Dolly, and in the book you said there are children. We are their children. The point being is, historically we've seen family lines, right? So if a grandparent is taken, then one of their offspring or all of them might be taken, and then their grand offspring. Would you say the same as in Dolly's case? Because we know your father was taken and had continuous contact.
My family line is very heavily included in my genetics, and I'm the product of a long line of people that are.
Yeah, this is accepted pretty much among all UFO researchers. We know this. There's many cases that have been traced back 4, 5, 6 generations. Jim Sparks talked about this. The ET showed him in Victorian times, in Roman times, all the way back to caveman times. Dolly has some interesting things to say about genetics, as do many contactees who have told me. I did Ancestry.com or all those DNA sites.
23 plus me and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
And their genetics go back to the original humans, as we all do. I mean, let's face it, we're all kind of related. But contactees have very interesting genetics. They really do.
Now, Dolly, you were shown the past, or you were brought to the past when I mentioned lower gravity here on Earth and higher oxygen. Did you actually see the life forms at the time, the big trees and the big animals such as dinosaurs, or it was just a vision?
I've advanced to the point that I can, when I go OBE, I walk out of the timeline and I can go backward. I don't go forward. I've been warned against it. It's not a good idea to do that. It can mess with your brains, but to go back and observe history is a really cool thing to do. Once I was taken when I was just about almost 5 years old. I was taken back in time. They brought me to a relative of mine, and I got to go to a party. And they gave me some rules about being there, and I was very obedient at that age. And so the first thing I realized is I'm not in America. I'm speaking Swedish only. It's all Swedish there. And I sat at a party. I didn't really interact with anybody, but I had a glorious good time. I mean, it was fun. Okay. And the father was an artist, and he made us all sit still individually, and he drew us, sketched us out.
Oh,
And then he
wow.
sketched us as a group. And years later, I'm a teenager, and my grandmother, who's living with us, my great grandmother, her name was Esther Amelia Nylander, and she was Swedish, from Sweden. And she said, "Look," and I said, "What?" She says she had this book that she just got, and it had Carl Larson in it, his paintings and stuff. She goes, "Isn't that you?" And I looked at it, I was like, "Oh my God, I remember that." I just looked at it, I was like, "Oh my God, yeah." And she said, "Shh." She was very psychic. She said, "Don't tell your mother." So I kept the picture, ripped it out, and I had it all these years. And I asked when I got older and I woke up, I asked Talara and mother both, Mama, is that, how the hell, why? And they said they knew, they had an idea about my life, and they knew that I might need this. And so they took me for it.
That's amazing that you
Yeah.
are a sketch being drawn in the past, and then
Yeah.
you're showing it and giving it in the future.
This just goes to show how advanced they are. They pull people out of the time stream. And there's many cases where ETs will say, this event is going to happen, and they will show it to you. And Dolly had one experience where they basically were, giving her a lot of astronomy lessons and lessons in physics and geology and the evolution of planetary systems. And they took her to a planet that was at the end of its life cycle, and the star was going nova. Well, it turns out, we caught this on the Hubble telescope, but this occurred like 80 million years ago.
Right.
So they were able to take her there to watch it happen.
Right. And I did. And it's funny, the synchronicity of it is, it's about 6 months after I came back, it happened. And it was still fresh in my mind. So I had both sides of the perspective.
Speaking of nova, in the end of the book, it's the chapter of the message to us humans. And I was talking to Preston while we were getting set up that we have the coronal mass ejection. Is that what it's called?
Coronal mass ejection. We have them all the time, but they're not strong. They're not very powerful.
The major one in 1859 messed up our telegraphs, right?
Yes.
But all the electronics we have now,
it's going to dump our grid. It'll wipe it out, and there's no coming back from that. Right. All of it.
Grid.
Every device, all of it's going to burn up. And they're looking, it can happen anytime. I'm going to be honest with you. They know that it could just suddenly happen. The sun is not a predictable thing. You can't look at it and say, okay, tomorrow, and it could come earlier, but it's at a cycle now where we know it's going to happen. And it's like right now we're upticking. You need to be thinking about things in August of this year. This is going to be a major uptick right now coming at us.
You mean from as far as the sun, another CME?
Yeah, a bad one, yes. In other words, it could potentially knock our grid out in August. I'm of the opinion that it's not, but I think we're going to suffer some serious damage. It's going to hit satellites. It's going to hit ground stuff. I mean, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be another shot across our bow. It's a warning by our own solar system letting us know, hey, I'm getting ready to let you have it. Pay attention. So I think that's coming this August.
That's the scariest part.
Look into the science on this. There's some very good research that's surfacing now, because you can't cover up everything. You can't cover up the sky.
Yeah.
Look this up. You will see that there is truth to this.
And more so, what worries me is this generation, right, is fully addicted to electronics, right? I mean, my 6-year-old goddaughter has an iPhone. Okay, she's 6. Now, I can't imagine everybody who was born in, say, 90s on would be able to live through weeks or months of having nothing. I'm talking about no refrigerator. Because
I want you to think about something. This is more important. I want you to listen to me for a second. Okay, this is going to be shown you in August. I'll bet money on it. Okay, the things that are going to start happening. Mark what I say to you now. Okay, all the telegraphs burnt up. The wires burnt up. The telegraph offices caught fire and burnt to the ground. This will happen to everything, including the wires in your homes, your cars, everywhere. It will catch fire. We have gas everywhere. Think about what's going to happen. There are going to be millions of fires. Right? Your house will catch on fire if the big one hits. Okay, if it's a grid killer, it will make your house burn down. ET is kind of wanting y'all to think about this really hard, critically go through your mind and say, I wonder what it would take for us to pull wire out of our house, which you can do. You've got a masthead. You can get up there. You can disconnect all your outlets and everything, let them go. Take the outlet heads off them and pull that wire out the masthead. Pull it out. Get your house free of any wire whatsoever. Get all of it out if it's coming. And you'll be convinced that it's time to do that. Learn how to live off grid. When I say you need to have at least a year's worth of food in your house right now, I'm not joking around. Year's worth of water. You need a way to grow a garden in your yard. You need all kinds of cool stuff, but you need to learn to be self-sustaining. That's important. Okay.
Return to homesteading, which we're not.
Right.
This is not doom and gloom, just so you know, because we are living in a world that is not sustainable.
Yeah.
We cannot go on with the greed and the corruption, the pollution.
Right. Yeah, it'll shut the government down, period. Okay. They won't be bothering you for a while. Okay. Not a while. The reason that we're going to go through this is ET can't be here to help us. Their technology, the way they fly, they use electromagnetic waves guidelines around our planet and the solar system and the universe. And what's happening to us is dramatic, and it causes them to crash. And it's already gotten to the point where they won't even come around anymore. They've got drones on us right now, and they have some sentinels on us. They're watching us. They're psychically connected to us, and they're keeping a close eye on us, but they are not involved in physical contact with us right now. If you see something in the sky that's not a drone of theirs, or whatever, I guarantee you it's back engineered BS.
So would you say the Tic Tac gimbal and those videos that were captured by the Navy are ours?
Maybe some of them. ET does have drones that look like Tic Tacs, and unless you're psychic and you can talk to it and tell you I'm a drone, I'm one of y'all, don't play. We have engineered vehicles that can float in our skies that are scary, and they look like ET, but they're not. The TR-3Bs. They have a type of TR-3B that is octangular, and they're dangerous.
Like, you mean like a pyramid?
A big triangle, right? And not a triangle. I mean a big rectangle in the sky. And they go about 45 miles an hour over your head, and they're loaded with cannons, laser cannons. They're crowd controllers. You've not seen one, but I have. And I'm taking my life in my hands right now by admitting that openly. Okay. Yeah. I have seen them. I know they exist. There's a couple other models they got out there too. You just don't want to be around for those. I kind of this is a terrible joke to say to people, but I want everybody to hurry up and start thinking about this, because the sooner the CME hits us and stops the governments from coming at us, the better.
Because once they're cracking down pretty bad right now.
I will say many contactees have been shown, given visions or dreams of UFOs showing up in very large numbers and lifting us off this planet.
Yeah.
So that
they will come back
to really look forward to. This is going to be amazing. People are going to be amazed at what happened. Yeah. I mean, this is a real possibility.
Yeah.
So don't worry. This is going to be good. The very, very worst thing that can happen to anyone is, moving on to the other side where it's glorious and wonderful, and you get to choose your next body.
You just got a body. That's all. You use all kinds of stuff. So
it's Dolly, you said this, Preston, you wrote about this. This topic is something I love it, and I'm glad it's in the book because I get to ask about this. I know in other books you've written, Preston, and other people you've spoken to have said this. Other people I've had on the show over the last 9, almost 10 years have also said this. But Dolly, you mentioned when they die, it's not really death, right? They just discard their past body and then move on to the next. So there's no sadness involved.
Correct. Right.
Why? Go on.
Your body is nothing but energy in a third dimensional gravity well that's held together. All your molecules are really light. Light meaning light. Light. Okay. And you're using this with your DNA in a physical construct just to be here. Your true self, who you really are, your consciousness is not it indwells you. It is not you. This physical body is nothing. Your consciousness never dies. It goes on and on and on and on. It's already alive and it's going to stay alive. You are who you are. The reason you're not remembering all your past lives right now is because your pineal gland is shut down and you can't collect it. Okay? You're not aware of who you really are.
Yeah, this is why it's so important we learn how to do OBEs. And it's not hard to do. This is a natural human talent. And all you need is
a
one.
book on it, right?
Yes, he has.
Yeah. I've taught people how to do it. I have a video on my YouTube channel which explains it very clearly. I can't encourage people enough. You will love it. And it will wake you up psychically. It's awesome.
Yes.
There is another question that popped up. Again, I'm kind of hoping people will wait for another 20 minutes, but I'll ask it. This is from Name 101. Do you know anyone whose craft are white and V shaped?
And what shaped?
V, like Victor.
Oh.
The only one that, to my mind, if it is a V, is the Phoenix Lights. But I've also seen footage that shows that that's actually we have that technology as balloons.
They have 7D holographic abilities, and that place where you saw the Phoenix Lights. I know, and this is controversial. I'm saying this, okay? It is a holographic image that they were displaying.
We or the ETs?
Us, not the ETs.
Yes, to scare us or to deflect.
It's a false flag move. They're building up that they're out there and they're going to get us. That's why the Space Force around the world and NATO and all that stuff, they're getting ready to just lay on us about it. Yeah.
Back to when you talked about the implant you had, if I'm not mistaken, did you mention that it was either not comfortable or you didn't want it there, something like that? Or
one of my sinus ones. My very first implant was behind my left ear. Okay. And I'm not right-handed. Your implants generally go on the side of your body opposite the side that you control most. And I knew it was there. I felt it. And I couldn't understand what it was. And I did everything I could to rip it out of my own body. I was just really little and I managed to get it out. I ripped my own skin open and pulled it out. When I was about 20, I had one up in my sinus and it was driving me crazy and it slid down for some reason. And I'm a nurse by then. And I got a pair of forceps and a scalpel and plucked it out. And I was like, I got the immediate, oh man, now we're going to put it where you can't pull it out. And I have another one that's up in this sinus on the right side. And I've showed it to Preston. I can play it like a little harp thing, you can hear it going when I touch it. And so it's there permanently. It's
good.
It listens to me, my respirations. It listens to my heart. It is almost like a homing device for them. They always know where I am. But if I was to expire, that it would automatically send them the message that something bad just happened to me.
Yeah, and that's the question I was going to ask Preston, and then of course to you to chime in too. In the 80s, when I first heard about implants, it maybe was early 90s. I don't remember the time when Roger Lear first started with the implants, but I assumed because based on our technology, we were not very advanced. We didn't have any ability to track someone like GPS, so I assumed implants were for that. But then, of course, as time goes by, I realized, wait a minute, I think they're, like you said, Dolly, tapping into all your vitals, right? Your heart rate, your nerves, all of that. So some people who've had implants removed, I've noticed, or the people who have had them removed said that the ETs were able to find them again. So do they not need them to find us? Preston, what's your take on that? And Dolly, of course, I would like to hear both your answers.
Yeah, well, I've heard that no, they don't. They don't need them. And people usually have multiple implants.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. You have more than one. Certainly. Yeah. They have backups.
Because I know a lady, I interviewed her. She had her implant removed by Dr. Roger Lear, and they came back 2 weeks later. But I've had a number of people who had the opportunity to ask flat out, what are these implants for? One lady was told it's to measure the levels of pollution in your body. Another was told this is to boost your immune system. Another was said this measures your vital signs. There's a contactee in England, Jason Andrews,
Hmm.
who is, I believe, fully conscious. He's not gone fully public. His mom has, Ann Andrews, has written a couple of books. But he says, don't you dare touch my implant. No,
Right.
this
Oh,
is
no, you
good
may
for
touch mine.
me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope he goes more public, because he is like Dolly, I think. And I know there are many other people out there who are fully conscious. I've run across them on Facebook, and I start talking to them, and they climb up pretty quickly because, they have to.
Yeah.
They have an important mission, and they can't draw too much attention to themselves. But there are a lot of contactees out there, and implants are good things. They are absolutely something that I talked to one lady. She, hers fell out. She became extremely ill afterwards from a hypoglycemic type illness, and was eventually taken on board, and they reimplanted her, and her illness went away almost immediately. She was fainting twice, 3, 4 times a day, losing weight like crazy. And they reimplanted her and basically cured her.
So it wouldn't be such a bad idea if someone like me were to seek contact, because obviously if I had enough contacts, I would assume they would give me an implant. And
How do you
like
know
you
you
said,
don't
it's
care
not
about nobody?
necessarily a bad
Yeah.
thing, because
Yeah.
it's been demonized years ago. Not so much
Right.
anymore.
I know. I have
Yep.
one on the top of my right thigh. This one does monitor what's coming in and out of in other words, it measures the toxic levels of my body. They
Mhm.
keep a close look on my vitals, how my organs are functioning and stuff. And it vibrates every now and then. And I know when it's vibrating, they're making contact with it. They're doing something, because I can feel it vibrate. It also sometimes feels the energy of a person. I'll let somebody feel it, and
Mhm.
sometimes it'll run from them. It goes deeper in my leg. And it's like, stop that. Don't try to touch it now. It doesn't want you to. Please stop, because I can feel it going and going deeper, deeper, deeper. And I'm like, stop. And that kind of.
But don't think ETs are going to cure you of all your problems. A lot of the illnesses people have is something they chose to help them grow karmically.
Right.
And I've heard this directly from people
Right.
who were taken on board and healed. And the ETs say, well, we can't heal this and that because, you chose this.
Right.
But they do heal far, far more people.
You wrote a whole book, I believe, right, on people that were saved from ETs, whether it be drowning, a car accident, or some fatal disease, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, 300 plus cases. David Jacobs is, pretty dismayed about the whole UFO situation, and yet he's got cases of people healed of pneumonia, diphtheria. Every major researcher, almost without exception, Dr. Richard Boylan, John Mack, David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, Barbara Lamb. I can keep going. Edith Fiore, Philip Mantle. They all have healing cases, and these were not being discussed because the media is very fear-based. Fear sells a story.
Like you said, and knock on wood, because David Jacobs, unfortunately, we can't interview him again. I'm sure you know why, right? He's got advanced, I think, Alzheimer's, but he doesn't even know my name anymore. So if I call him, he doesn't recognize my voice. But everything he ever said during an interview, or everything in his, I think, books, did he write more than one book? The point was, it was always at the negative aspect, the fear, nothing positive about it. So you're right. They were very demonized. And like you said, fear does sell, which is kind of sad because we need something uplifting now. Dolly, you also mentioned that we choose our bodies and we're able to remember our past lives. Is the reason that most of us can't because what you said earlier, we're so toxic and, calcified pineal glands and all that?
Yes. We're also brought up in a our society is so fear-based now. It's so negative. The negativity is coming at you. And the government has something going on now that I don't know if you're aware of it. You should be. They have a neural net up above our heads now. It's connected. They have a supercomputer in the Arctic. That's why they don't want you there. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. I call it baby because it's awake. It's thinking, and it can hear everything you think, and it can speak to you through 5G. It can talk to you through your phone psychically. And you know how people years ago used to say, you can learn things if you listen to it while you're asleep. Okay. And that's because your consciousness, they knew your consciousness is awake all night long. It's awake 24/7. and you OBE from your body, your consciousness isn't going to sit there all night and wait for you to wake up your body. It's going to go off and do what it wants. It's free to do so anytime. Okay. And so if you teach your brain at night, your consciousness is listening to it and it's transmitting to your body too. It's hardwiring it. Baby can talk to you like that. Baby can make you crazy. Baby can make you do bad things. Okay.
Yeah, and remember, we are dealing with a government that doesn't have our best interests in
Yeah.
mind, and there
Right.
are my labs and a lot of people who
Right.
have negative experiences.
Right.
This is not coming from the ETs, and
Right.
I'm not going to say every ET out there is here to lovey-dovey, because it's a big, wide universe.
Right.
Yeah,
Do-
we have
do-
yin yang, right? Good,
Yeah,
bad.
but
Right.
don't buy the alien threat narrative. It's not true. If you think aliens are here to hurt us, don't you think we would have already been decimated?
Oh, yeah.
It makes
Centuries
zero
ago.
sense.
Eons. Yes.
I mean, just think about it logically.
Right.
They
Yeah.
have always been here for millennia.
Right.
They have been here,
Right.
and every contactee. Well, I'm not gonna say every, but the ones that are really extensive and digging into their experiences and really trying to learn have been told these sort of things and get the same message Dolly told me, which is, we are you, you are us, we are one. I hear that so many times. They
Right.
really look upon us as brothers and sisters, as equals, as children,
Right.
as friends.
Do you know how a lot of people have talked about that our DNA is encoded with our history? And if we can, I don't know if the word unlock is proper, but somehow be able to read our DNA, that we would actually see or unlock superpowers, including knowing that we are connected with them?
Oh, well, let me give you a history of what's really going on, and then I'll discuss it with you. Okay.
Okay.
We live in a universe that's totally connected to itself. It's got a mainframe in the third dimension. It has 12 dimensions indwelling inside that mainframe throughout the entire universe. Every molecule, every speck, every dust, every proton, every gluon, muon, all of it are connected, and they're electromagnetic in nature. Okay. And they hear and they can repeat things. It's like a Memorex. Okay. Every part of your body has Memorex ability. Every cell in your body remembers everything throughout your lifetime. Your DNA speaks to that. Your DNA records everything that you do. That's why there's genetics and supergenetics. And they go on and on and on and on and on. So you're a walking, talking tape recorder of life, all life. And it's not just your life, it's life throughout the entire universe. We're all 100% connected to one another. You can talk to somebody millions and millions of light years away because that's how connected you are. Now, you can't use technology to unravel that. Yes, there are codes, but they aren't the codes that you understand they are. They're light. And the memory of that light is consciousness. Okay. And so when you open up your pineal gland and you allow your consciousness to start operating properly inside the body you're indwelling, all those answers come into play. You don't need to unlock your DNA. You're already talking to it. You're just not hearing it right now. You'll hear the universe talk to you. All of it. Everything and everyone will suddenly get loud. Trust me, loud. You will hear all of it. That's what that is.
Gotcha. One thing, you also have a picture. I believe it was when you were in Laughlin and you rented the house or wherever you were staying
as an Airbnb.
Yeah, the SUV with the agents is watching you, and of course they followed you to Laughlin. Is this something that you're dealing with all the time? I mean, are they posted out where you are right now, or can you go to a grocery store without seeing somebody watching you?
I always have a buddy. Somebody's on my tail all the time. They watch me. They live around me. I'm in an apartment complex, and they moved in above me and on the side of me. And yeah.
So they're listening to this right now, not necessarily from the stream, probably because they're right above you. That's scary.
So are the ETs too, by the way. They're probably but I actually watched it happen because I've met Dolly face to face first time at the Laughlin MegaCon, and we shared the B&B, which was not far from the actual conference. And I was driving home, Dolly's in the seat, and I'm like, I think someone's following us, Dolly. And she didn't say much. I'm like, no, seriously. She's like, just smiling. And we pulled in and walked in, and this car followed us on. There was quite a few side streets. I'm like, huh. And then it pulls up and stops and blocks the driveway. I'm like, look, Dolly, they're blocking
Moving
the
down
driveway now.
94.
and this is, I've
Yeah,
heard this from other contactees. One
yeah,
lady, she had her hypnosis tape stolen. They broke into her house, and that's what they took. Another guy had people
yeah,
break into his house. They took his contact notes, not his
yeah,
stereo, not his camera, not his money, his contact notes.
yeah.
That's it.
Things that keep revealing the truth, which is so scary. Now, do you think that these agents are humans? I mean, okay, I hate to say that word in terms of what we're talking about because we're all connected, star people and us living on this
Right.
planet. But do you think that these people are malevolent beings that are not from here?
No, no, no.
So they're just bad U.S. agents or whatever they are.
Or
Like,
alt-world government peoples. Yeah.
yeah.
I had. I'm trying to remember what years. I think it was just before Lapland, so it was probably 2020.
Mhm.
Where I was living, they surrounded me all the time. I mean, they had one guy that was walking up and down behind the apartment complex where we were. I mean, constant eyes on, constantly pulling in at night, surveying me, cameras, everything. They were waiting for Tolar to come down so they could catch him. I
Mhm.
lived right near the U.S. Space Force, Tyndall Air Force Base at the time, and I drove them crazy because they couldn't catch him. Okay. One night, they decided that they were going to, after the hurricane, Michael, they were going to start trying to pull a fast one. And one tried to climb up the back of our house. I wasn't alone one night, and he hit the back roof, and he got pushed down. Okay, understand? And then the
Yeah.
next thing I know, I get up to look what's going on, and a lot of EMP'd his car. Everybody in the car jumped for their lives. It caught fire. All their electronic equipment went down. They had 6 agents out there in a special wrecker come out. They covered the car and everything. I was laughing my butt off. I was taking pictures of it. Preston has them all. Okay. I just sat there and I thought, you got to be dummies to be that stupid, because I've had instances in my life where they've tried to grab me and they were taught very serious lessons. I'm untouchable. Don't come near me. It will be bad.
Yeah, and that there's the alien threat. It's not a threat to us, it's a threat to them.
To them.
To the power elites struck, power over us, to their jobs, to their position of, controlling
Control.
us.
Yeah, you just said the word that I was thinking, control. And
Yeah.
they, Preston, they instill fear in us to control us, right?
Yes.
Right. And yes, are they human? Well, yeah, but that's the demonic force right there. They've chosen the path of evil. Seriously.
Yeah.
So that, people say, oh, aliens are demonic. No. If you look into the whole history of demonology, which I did because all of this stuff is connected in weird ways, paranormal and stuff. There's bad spirits for sure, but you have the choice between good and evil, and people who make that choice. If you look to the history of humanity, it is dark. We are not so nice to each other. And we're still struggling with that. Most people, I think, are good people, but there's an element on this planet who is unfortunately is sociopathic and in power, who does not have our best interests in mind. People ask me, why don't you trust the government? Well, other than lying about the UFO situation since day one, look what they've done. They have poisoned people deliberately, given them venereal disease.
Yeah, syphilis, the black people from, I think, World War II.
LSD, you name it. Yeah.
Sterilization.
Right.
Yeah.
There are
Radiated
governments
people
in the past that have experimented on people. I mean, let's be real and honest about this. We do more damage to each other here than they've never done that to us. There's been anything bad coming from that faction.
I do not trust our government. That recent congressional hearing, I'm like, yay, they said UAP. They were real. Couldn't say the word extraterrestrial, but lied throughout it. We never, shot at them? No, we never shot at them. I'm like, wait a second. The Battle of LA, 1,400 rounds. You shot at them.
That's right. And what about the other pilots? There was you know the name of this pilot. I think it was in the 50s, maybe 60s, but he was chasing a UFO with a fighter jet. But he got so high up, passed out, and then crashed because he had hypoxia.
Yeah, Mantell.
Right.
That was from the book Shoot Them Down, right?
Yeah, we had a policy. Yes, we've shot at them. Do we know about the Mantell or what? The Malmstrom incident? They were asked that in the congressional hearings. No, the Malmstrom incident, what's that? We have no information on that. Really? You're the Department of Defense? And you don't know about the time the ET shut down the missiles?
Yeah,
Which
well,
was
it's top secret, and they can't tell you it's top secret because it's top secret, and they won't tell you. That's right.
That's really, really
but
sad.
I know, and I'm just a boy from Reseda.
I know, but plausible
Yeah.
deniability is their religion. So, okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
it's infuriating. I can't take it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm actually, when I heard about that, they didn't know about Maelstrom, and I know there's at least another base in the U.S. where they shut down ICBMs. But it's mind blowing because you had Robert Salas talking about this for years, decades actually, and other people I think that were not necessarily where Salas was, but were on the base, but a different part were able to observe the craft coming in. And I think in Maelstrom, there were 6 different ICBMs that were shut down. You cannot shut them down with one button. I guess they're independently controlled, powered. So all of this should have
it was more than that. And yeah, they were independent systems. And I talked to a guy firsthand, Mel Hansen, who I put his interview in my book, Wondrous. He was there. He saw the UFO. It hovered over the missile, shut it down. They went back up on generator power. They shut down the generator. And then it went on battery power. They shut that down.
U.S. is not the only country that this has occurred in either. They've done it to everybody who's got nukes. Everybody has experienced that at one time or another. You know, it's not isolated events for us at all.
They don't like nukes. This is not a threat. No. They're trying to help us, send a message saying, listen, you are on the verge of destroying yourself. I know from a military mindset, they're freaked out when something like that happens. But this is not a threatening action. It's not a hostile action. It's a warning. And they know this. They know it 100%. They're all over our nuclear power stations, and they're not shutting them down.
And you're right. It's not just mutual assured destruction, because our nukes are so much stronger than they were 70 years ago, right? 76 or 75 years. The point being is, if we launch a nuclear weapon to whatever country, chances are they're going to fire back. Before you know it, there will be North. And isn't one of the aspects that they're trying to warn us, not just because we're going to destroy this whole planet, us and everything else on it, but because of the domino effect that happens with nuclear energy, where it affects their timeline or their dimension or their planets?
Okay, I want to talk to you about timelines first, and then I'll answer that question. There is only one timeline in this entire universe. It is the third dimension. It's gravity heavy, and everything physical in that dimension has a timeline. Everything above that does not. Okay, you go into fourth dimension, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up to the 12th. There is no timeline. We are the only ones, first, second, and third, who experience a timeline or understand the concept of time. They're outside of it completely.
Okay.
Dimensionally.
One other thing I wanted. Go ahead and finish before I get to this. I'm just writing it in the chat real quick.
Okay, so if you set a nuclear device off in your space, like let's say Florida gets hit with a nuclear device. In Florida, the dimensional space in Florida, all 12 of them, because they're existing at the same time, all together, one on top of the other, is going to take a terrible, terrible hit. You're not just killing and destroying in our physical dimension, you're killing and destroying all the way through those 12. It is devastating. There are beings who live here with you in your dimensional space, and you are killing them as well.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're actually committing murder.
Murder. You're right.
Straight up murder.
Okay.
As Preston mentioned a while ago, military abductions known as MILABs. Have you ever seen either government agents or military men during your abductions, Dolly?
No. And I still don't call them abductions. I was contacting.
Contacts. Yeah.
When I was really little, before my dad understood why I was so psychic, because he had never seen it like that, even in himself. He was in the military, and they kind of convinced him, because he was talking to people, upper ranks, echelons, to let me come in there, and they test me. He did not know what MK Ultra was then, okay, and he had no clue. And he brought me in Miami into Homestead Air Force Base, where MK5 was. And they started testing me, and they immediately wanted me in there. He let me spend 2 nights, 3 nights in there, and a general friend of his said, get me out now. and he signed orders, and my dad went in there ready to hurt them if they didn't let me go, and they knew it. You don't mess with a ranger, okay?
Yeah.
Especially when ring. And so he got me out, but they tried to abduct me again, MK program, when I was about 8.5, 9, and then again as an older teenager. They've come after me a couple times. This is not funny, okay? They're real SOBs. And I met a girl in Homestead Air Force Base when I was being tested, my age, who was playing with me and just as psychic as me. They paired her up with me, and I never forgot her. Never. Okay. She is an agent. She's an MK Ultra agent, and she's come out. And her name is Penny. And when I was introduced to her, I was shocked when I saw her because I recognized her right away. I was like, "Oh my God!" And we started talking, and she realized, and I realized, "Oh my God, we were there at the same time." She grew up in Florida as well, and her family were military. Well, but she was sucked into the program, but she had a handler and the whole thing. So yeah, they exist. They're alive. They're real people.
One thing I've been dying to ask you, even before we got today, the moment I first finished the book was, in all the times you've been on board craft and have seen other humans and helped with some of them, whether it be, calming them down, taking off their clothes to be seated or lying down, have you ever seen any world leaders on board?
I saw a relative of mine once, and I can't tell you who it was or why. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I asked some of these questions. She's seen some famous people. She won't tell me who. She did have one experience where she was pulled on board and as a little girl and saw this black musician. She's like, "Wow, this guy, he's famous. I know he is. What's his name?"
Told me his name, everything. Preston's talking to me one day, and he mentioned Jimi Hendrix is dead. We were talking about music, and I had a heart attack. I went, "What? What?" He said, "Jimi Hendrix is dead. I don't pay attention to what goes on this planet very much." I was shocked because I met him on board. I listened to him play. He got me interested in wanting to learn how to play the guitar. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
I mean,
and he's 100% contactee. He had a major experience in upstate New York. His bandmate, Brian Knight, is that his name, talked about it. Jimi Hendrix admitted to seeing UFOs, made some very intriguing comments about how our solar system is going to go through major changes. He was a contactee. He absolutely was.
It's mind-blowing how many musicians are. I know, Grant Cameron wrote a book literally just on people who were musicians and wrote songs about, ETs or, UFOs. It was mind-boggling to see how many.
Have you ever heard of saying, very intelligent people who are using their mind, really well, and their pineal gland, their psychic, hear music? Have you ever heard the term, you hear music? Think about that. Seriously contemplate on that, because musicians not just want to be musicians and want to be artistic that way, they hear music as well, just like a higher mathematician does.
Moody Blues, Miley Cyrus, Demi Lovato,
Blink-182.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Now, I'm going to get to some of the questions in the chats. Before I do, I want to ask you, Preston and Dolly, Preston, you're always on. I'm going to have you on more and more again, of course, but we definitely are going to have to do more on this book. Clearly, we only touched on some of the topics because there's so many great things, So before I turn it to questions from the audience, is there anything that you feel is necessary for this interview today? Oh, you'll have another chance to say final words again, of course, too.
I mean, we have covered a lot, but I do want to mention that, we've only really scraped the surface. We didn't get to talk about her being on mother ships.
See, this is why I definitely want to do more, because there is a lot more. And I know
all kinds of animals and stuff.
Yeah, that's not. And that one of the planets you even talked about, I don't know if it was their planet. I think anyway, the point is you have
the water
other
planet
stuff
in the Delphi system. Yeah.
So we will do that for sure next time, if that's okay with both of you. Okay, again, one lucky person will receive a signed copy of Symmetry. Preston wrote the book about Dolly's experiences, and it is signed, I mentioned. So what I'm going to do, this is how the method is. Everybody who is in the chat, as long as you wrote something in the chat, hit thumbs up, and are subscribed and have notifications. If you could prove that to me, taking a screenshot or whatever, On the next time I stream, I will announce the winner. What I want you guys to do is contact my social media. I guess you could call her publicist, Pam Vrettenberg. She will collect them all, and from then I will choose a person at random. But you have to complete all 4 of those things: comment, like, subscribe, notifications. Now, the first question is, what can we do to meet the star people? Which we kind of already discussed, but that's from Name 101.
Become actively engaged in thinking about it and asking for it to happen. Use your abilities, learn to use your abilities. Here's a handy dandy little tool. Russell Targ, who was an agent for the government, left a thing on the internet for everybody to develop their psychic abilities. It's called ESP Trainer.
I've interviewed him. Yeah, the app, right? You're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bloody use it. It's really good. It's a lot of fun to play. Once you get good at it, start including your family members. Get everybody in your life involved. Try to start speaking psychically to one another. Don't use words, use your mind. And I guarantee you, the more you flex that muscle in your head, that pineal gland, the better at it you get. They will start to hear you big, and then learn to remote view, learn to OBE. Read Preston's book about it. He is the boss when it comes to that. Okay.
And
do
your video.
CE5s too. CE5s work. Dolly has been on board when she's been on board the craft, responding to CE5 people who are doing protocols.
And no laser pointers. I hate them. They all do. The reason they flare up like that is they're turning to get away from you. Don't use laser pointers. They can hear you and see you. They don't need that instigation. Just don't stick a laser in their eyeballs. It hurts them. Like pilots, it's illegal to shine a light in a pilot's eyes. It goes straight into your cornea. It's a nightmare. They are us. We are them. They have the same problem. Don't do it. Okay.
It's a very good point. I used to produce concerts and raves, and one of them was by LAX, and the outdoor stage had lasers. Yeah. We got shut down because the pilots that were trying to land at LAX would, radio into the air traffic control and say, "We're being blinded." Knock on wood, no one got hurt, but I see what you mean. This next question, before I ask it, anybody whose question I may have missed, please copy it and rewrite it again. That way it appears at the closest to the bottom of the feed. This question is literally an entire chapter you wrote, which I'm so glad this person asked, because again, like you said, Preston, we barely scratched the surface. This is from Alistair 1. Did you ever attend space school? And go ahead. I'll let you guys answer that.
Attend what school?
Space.
Oh, well, yeah, when I was learning to fly, I had to. I was taken out and I was taught how to fly. I've been taught astronomy. I've been taught astrophysics. I've been taught all kinds of things. Yeah, very cool.
You also have the chapter on secret school and flight training.
I mean, this is very common among contactees. They are taken and taught morality, ethics, science, astronomy, quantum physics, biology, and also psychic development. People are taught, telekinetic exercises,
right?
All this kind of stuff. And huge shout out to Alistair 1. I know who you are. Awesome to see you here. So that's a great question because it's very common among contactees.
I'm glad you asked that question, Alistair 1, because again, this was something that before we started today's interview, I kind of made a mental list of things that I wanted to talk about. And the reason why, as I got to that chapter, before I even read the chapter, just the title triggered the memory of me reading, what's his name? I'm blanking out his name. The movie with Christopher Walken was made about his abductions. I know you're talking about Preston. He lives in the valley with
something.
Whitley Strieber.
Thank you.
Okay.
He wrote an entire book on that, and that was the first time I realized there's secret schools. So I'm so glad Alistair 1 did ask that question, and I promise next time we will definitely get more to that. If you guys want to add more to that while I get to the next question, I will let you. In the meantime, let me scroll.
I think Whitley Strieber was really cool. I did an interview with him, and we started talking, and it hit him profoundly. We both had very, very similar things. So we both know the AI grays really, really well. And his description of them is exactly like mine. When they're not on, they stack them up like cordwood. I use the stackable chair thing,
Mhm.
And you see whole rooms full of them, and he was like, yes, 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 he knew. So yeah.
Jerry E asks, does the government suppress alien medical technology, or is it using it privately?
Oof, I know about that. Actually, I researched that in my book about healings, and there's a number of whistleblowers who dealt with crash retrievals,
Mhm.
who's, who have talked about some of the technology being taken out of UFOs. Some of it they cannot take out; they go right back in. But some they have successfully removed. There's a jewel-like device which slides over a person's body and holographically projects any tumors that are there.
Right.
Others
It
that can,
displays the inside of their body holographically. Yeah.
yeah, others that can open up a person's body or sew it back up, very much like you see in Star Trek.
Mhm.
And if you look at the onboard UFO accounts, it's all about healing. They've got a lot of that technology. Yes, our government does have some of this and are using it privately. But the ETs know better than to just give it to us because it would be a disaster.
Right. I'm not ready for it.
I interviewed Foster Gamble. I'd like to say it was one of the last few interviews, which it was, but unfortunately, I haven't done very much this year. Actually, this is the first one in this calendar year. And in his newest movie, Thrive Part 2, essentially, he talked about different technologies and patents that were seized. And everything from things that can cure cancer, like instantly, tumors that are stage 3, I think, before they spread, or whatever it was. He said like an injection would be given, and instantly that if he would be pressing on the tumor, his wife was, holding a woman who had breast cancer, holding the tumor. And as soon as the injection came in, the tumor dissolved immediately. She was so shocked. Foster's wife, Kimberly Foster, or Kimberly Gamble, she fell over because she literally fainted. So I totally know that we have ET, technology that's hidden in patents or
Right.
DOD or other places. So it's really sad that we don't have access to them yet. And I wonder what it's going to take for us to get in those vaults to actually get them from the patent office.
Don't think so. Never. Never.
Okay.
Okay.
That was Jerry E's question. Hold on a second here. I know there is someone else. Ooh, what's this one here? Another one from Alistor one. I have memories of being in space school on a ship in a class with other students, humans and hybrids. We were being instructed on how to make platonic shapes that were made of crystal levitate. It's less of a question, but okay, there's a comment if you guys want to say anything about it. Here's the next question. Name 101. Do the star people get involved with human pregnancies?
Yes. I have 3 hybrid babies. I have 2 sons and a daughter. My daughter came into being when I was 58 years old, just before a kidney transplant. That was an interesting week for me.
Mhm.
I agreed to this, and they ask women who are willing to give their time and their bodies to helping them
Mhm.
bring babies into the world. For a long time, they were incapable of mass reproduction on their own. When you're in gamma radiation, like I said, it eats your body up. It takes you out, and it messed their DNA up to the point that they were becoming sterile. And so because we are related to them, very closely related, they were breeding back with us. But they never took from us. They asked. Every woman who's ever done this has agreed to it. So
I remember in your book, it might have been the first pregnancy, and you were offered if you want it to be, I think it was artificial or natural, right? And
right,
you chose
yeah,
natural, and
right,
I think it was 4.5 months, and you weren't showing much because you didn't want to tell your family when
right.
they took the baby, right?
Right. My brother noticed. And my brother's like, "Are you pregnant?" I was like, "Why? What are you asking me? I'm just gaining weight." No, no, no. You thought I was pregnant. He accused me of it. And then when it changed, he was like, "Well, maybe you weren't." I fooled him, okay, after the fact. But yeah, he knew I was pregnant. Um,
No,
it,
this is well known among UFO researchers. I got my
yeah,
first case right away back in 1988 and have since talked to many people who've had this experience, both men and women. I mean, men obviously not pregnant, but do have offspring who are being raised among the ETs. One lady, I talked to a couple in Canada. Their baby was taken at 7.5 months, which is very, very unusual. I've never had a case like that. But she's like, I'm fine with it. I know my baby's out there. They're in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
This is a difficult subject for some people who do feel violated and don't fully understand what's going on. It's quite controversial. My heart does go out to people who are, experiencing trouble with this, because it's not always easy going through this experience. But yes, that absolutely does happen.
Yeah, there's another woman. You might know her. She's been on the show before. Charlene McCain. She's part of Zero, and she's had over 20 children over a span of, I don't know, 20, 30 years. And she said the first couple were the most traumatizing because she didn't want to let the baby go. At first, she didn't even know if they're the ones who impregnated her. Only when they took the baby from her did she realize, or was told, that, hey, in fact, we impregnated you. It wasn't from your boyfriend or husband at the time, whatever it was. And only after time did she start to accept it and realize there's no harm being done. So
I had conditions with the first one. I wanted to know who the father was. I wanted to know that the father would be involved in its life. I had it in my mind that if I couldn't be there, he was going to be. And I was assured of that. And he promised me, and he was. And that particular child did come back and see me when I was older. My brother had been injured, and I was taking care of him. And I was walking down his bloody driveway, which was a 45-degree angle straight down to do the garbage. And I went down, head over to kettle, broke my elbow and smashed I had a black eye, and just, it was a mess. And I'd come back from the hospital, and I was laying in the bed, and I was miserable, and I was too sick to get up and get even a pill to help myself, because it was clean in the kitchen downstairs. And I finally said, okay, just get up, just go get the dang pill. And I got up and I made it down the stairs. And when I got to the bottom, there he was standing there staring at me. And I was like, whoa. And it was a shock. Okay. It was a shock. And he said, you know who I am, right? And I'm looking at him. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm looking at my kid. And he's like, yes. And he helped me. He healed my elbow. I had a very broken elbow, and he healed it for me. So amazing.
Again, it goes with healing, right? Them to be able to heal. I wish they could heal me, knock on wood. All the broken bones that have turned to arthritis and other stuff. But you know what? Again, like you earlier said, it's stuff that we chose prior to being born for our growth, right? This was from Alex Oyen, Under the Veil, good friend. He's asking from a question from Scott. By the way, Alex and Rockstar, both of you, thank you for your super chat. It says, my friend Scott is wanting to ask Dolly and Preston, what is the scariest abduction experience you ever had? I would say contact for your. What is the scariest contact you've ever had?
Me?
Yeah, you and then Preston. Which one have you heard? I guess.
The very first thing that ever happened to me, I was 10 months old, and I didn't know what the hell was happening. I was levitating out of my crib. And when I got to the top of the rail and realized, where the hell am I going? I tried to flip over and go back down. I was desperate to go back down. That I wouldn't call it terrifying, but I was very upset. And I don't remember any more than that. It's just stuck in my head, that just boom. My family laughed about it. They took pictures of me because I used to sleep with my feet through the bars to hang on, because I didn't want to have it happen to me again. It affected me that bad. I got over it, and realized that I could levitate on my own. So
and wait, how old did you say you were again on that one? Was that one of the
10
first
months
ones?
old. 10 months.
That was where you were a baby, literally a baby. Okay.
I walked at 8 months. I was an early.
Well, you were very early, right? From what I'm mistaken, you were reading early, walking early, all of that.
Yeah, which is normal for contactees. I hear that a lot. Yeah, I can remember all the way down to 6 months. So when Dolly started telling me this, I'm like, wow, I've heard this before.
Yeah. Well, that's an indicator, and it's ironic you say that, because I have memories. I wasn't 6 months, but I was about 2. That my mother cannot believe I remember, because I shouldn't be remembering when I'm under 2 and around 2. I believe it was just under 2 because my brother was even born yet. He's 22 months younger than me. Anyway,
as far as the scariest experience I've heard, just real quick, it's usually involved the physical exam, something to do with that. People have a lot of fear. There's a guy in England, Gary, who was not happy, and they injected a needle into him, and he did not like it. But again,
you, Dolly, have had both probes, right? Both your,
I've had every test they could give me, and I have had a needle go into my skull, and it took some real serious talking to me before they did it. Okay, because I'm a human being also, and I was like, "You're gonna do what?" And I'm a big girl, and I'm powerful as hell. I'm like an Amazon, and Mama was like, "It's okay. You won't feel it. You won't feel it. I promise. I promise." And I'm like, "Prove it. Put it in my arm first." And it did. They went in my arm with it first. I didn't feel it. I was like, "Okay."
Because you know what? When I hear about big needles, the first time I remember is the Betty Hill abduction when she was giving that big needle in her navel to see if she was pregnant, which is years before we started testing pregnancies. So I'm scared of needles. If I was being told a big needle's going to go in my head, I don't know how I would react.
And she said it hurt, and they immediately stopped it. And then they said, "We're sorry. We did not know you would feel pain."
Right.
They immediately stopped the pain.
Yeah, if you feel pain, they won't do anything to you. I've even had a needle go into my eye. Okay. They were checking me for something.
I know, right?
And yeah, I've had an actual doctor here on this planet put a needle in my eye. And they had to give me Valium for that. There was no way. I mean, in my mind, he was toast. I was going to hurt him if he hurt me. And I warned him, don't. He said, "We have to do this." And I'm like, "Well," he said, "Tell you what, let's give her some Valium." And they gave me a lot. I was like, "Hey, okay, go ahead."
I'd have to be literally tranquilized.
I was.
Comatose.
Ooh, it was bad.
Okay, couple more for you. And I know we're cutting close on time. I know you have to go, Preston. And again, I do know we could keep this for 24 hours straight is not enough. And Preston, how much I've loved this topic. From the time I met you, I mean, we've had some of the greatest conversations. And now having Dolly here, which is great because now I get to ask questions on. You've seen it, Preston's other books, right, Dolly? UFOs over California, UFOs over Arizona.
Yeah, he sent me his first book. He sent me was
Inside UFOs.
Yeah, Inside UFOs. Well, and it was right after my kidney transplant. So
my absolute favorite chapters, aside from reading the whole book, right, of those ones, UFOs over, I always start with crash and retrievals, onboard encounters, and contacts and abductions. So everything you're talking about is literally like, to me, what I call the creme de la creme, because who else are we going to get answers from ETs unless we speak to people like you, Dolly, who have actually experienced it? We could read all the books we want. We could hear all the lectures we want. But until someone interviews and writes a book about someone like yourself, I don't think we're ever going to get the truth. And like you said at the beginning of this, Preston, there are a lot of people who lie. And that is sad because this field does not need to be muddied. Okay,
I'm really waiting for him to start talking. I'm not kidding you. When I opened my mouth up to him, I thought I was going to find more like me. Okay. And I know about the one in England, the boy, the young man. Okay.
Jim Sparks is another one, but he fell off the radar. I do know he was in Australia about 5-7 years ago, but he's not as public as he was, say, 10, 12 years ago.
They're out there. They'll come.
Well, again, you wrote this in the book. I'm really hoping by telling your story, Dolly, more people are going to get the strength to come out.
Right, exactly. Lose your fear. Just drop it. It's not necessary. You're okay. Okay. You're always going to be okay. No matter what happens in this life, 3 things you got to remember. And this is going to be my last remarks. 1, live your life. Live every day. You're here to do something. Do it. Okay. The second one is to be happy. Like Preston says, to be in joy. And then to know all that is knowable and then proceed. Okay. Learn everything you can. Those are the 3 important things that you need to do here. Because when you leave here, the only thing that's going with you is your astral self. And it can take love and it can take knowledge. That's it. Work at it.
Now, the last couple of questions here from you. Name 101. Are there star people involved with Sasquatch?
Yes. I did a whole study of this. Other people have. most people who see Sasquatch aren't going to see a UFO, and vice versa. But there's a good number of cases, 50 to 100, where these two phenomena intersect perfectly. People see Sasquatch coming out of a UFO, going in, a UFO appears, Sasquatch is there. They are contacting Sasquatch, who I believe is probably sentient, intelligent, at least some of them, and does have an understanding of, interdimensionality. So there is a connection there. They're telepathic. It was very shocking when I started doing Sasquatch research. There is absolutely a connection there. They are people. We are not the only intelligence on this planet.
Right.
And I think that's what the connection is.
The first person who mentioned that to me was John Lear. And then the more I started to think about it, it makes sense that they are ETs or they are related because they're such big, massive creatures. And then they're seen and then they're gone. Or a lot of times, like I saw this show called Aliens in Alaska. And people were talking about
like that show,
right?
Yeah.
Great show. I think it's one of the greater shows. And it talks about one of the Sasquatch, and you see the giant foot marks, and it just disappears. Similar to the Skinwalker Ranch, but I've heard that multiple times. Where are they going? I'm assuming possibly, crossing to another dimension or what.
Do you think that they're gardeners? Do you think that they live here to keep an eye on our environment?
I used to think that. I think I'm more questionable now. Are they here permanently or are they here visiting?
No, they come here for a reason. They have a purpose. They actually watch the condition of this planet. That's their eyes on.
Yeah,
they live in it. They're especially adaptable to it. Okay, and they are sentient. They are intelligent, and that's why they're here. But they don't live here. They come back and forth.
By living in the forest when they're here, that makes sense because you said they're guarding, protecting it, right? Well, the trees are the lungs of the earth. That's why forests are so important. So I'm glad somebody's watching them.
Accounts stretch back hundreds of years, and they can travel interdimensionally. So yeah.
Okay, this is Damien K. Question, guys, what do you think about cryptids? Are they aliens? Real?
As well.
Not? Oh, sorry. As well or not. Plus, can someone explain what exactly dimensions means? I'm Polish and my English is not bad, just never knew about.
Oh, dzień dobry, jak się masz? Okay. Let me say it in English. A dimension is in the same space that we are, to put a box in front of you, inside that box. And it looks like there's nothing in the box, but the box is actually full. It's full of space. It's full of gravity. It's full of light. It has fields of energy in it that are dense and light as well. And a dimension is another layer of energy coexisting in the same space, one on top of the other. If you were to explain it mathematically, okay, you would be able to say, well, we're the third dimension and we can draw a fourth dimensional box, we can visualize what that would look like, okay? Mm-hmm. But if you turn light just a little bit more, like a prism, you will see more detail of that. You will go into another dimension that has the fifth dimensional box and the sixth dimensional box and the seventh. And these are beings who live in these dimensions with us in light, the same light that we're in, but we don't see it because we're gravity heavy here. And the way we perceive the light with our eyes and our minds, we're not looking at them directly, but they do directly look at us. They interact with us all the time. You know tales of angel guardians and things like that, guardian angels, things like that. Something will suddenly move, or you'll see somebody walk by, or somebody get pushed out of the way of an oncoming car, whatever. These are beings who are in this space with us, and they watch over us. They care about us.
Third phase of moon is in the house real quick. They're in the chat. I just wanted to give a shout out to them and also mention real quick, if you read their comment, I was mentioning to you, Preston, a few days ago. They had visitations by alien graves when they were children. So everybody out there, I thought this is a really cool comment and just goes to show how many people have had contact. Anyhow, Preston, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead and what you were saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the other part of Damien's question. Hi, Damien. Regarding cryptids. No, ETs are not cryptids as we would think of it. I mean, you could say that semantically, but a cryptid really just means undiscovered creature.
But here
So,
usually, right?
yeah, here on
Earth-like
Earth.
creature.
I mean, you could have called the mountain gorillas cryptids because we did not know about them or believe in them. But there are creatures like Sasquatch, like the dog men, or dog people, sea serpents, this sort of thing. What do you call those? The chupacabra. Those are cryptozoological creatures, but they don't. All these are us beginning to realize we're not alone on this planet, and there's other creatures, and some of them are interdimensional. Yes, there are different dimensions. There's a
or they're
physical
just
dimension.
brought here from another place. There are animals that exist with us in this iteration of where we're at right now that have come from somewhere else.
Like giraffes, right?
Yes.
You mentioned that in your book.
Yes.
The book.
Yeah, they did not evolve here at all. No. Yeah, they're from somewhere else.
I knew it. I knew that in school. I'm like, that neck is too long.
Right? I know. Zebras too. I remember you write something about zebras, but I'm blanking out. Was that something else that also evolved on another planet and got here?
Most of the equine were brought here from they were with us on Mars, okay? And they got everybody off of Mars and they brought them to other places and then they brought them back. They are a breed all by themselves. The only animal that you can breed with a zebra is a horse or a donkey, and those animals are sterile when they're born. Their babies are sterile. They can't rebreed because it's not close enough for them to create a breeding capacity with them. The ability of that animal, a zebra, its innate abilities and the way it survives are ingrained in its DNA so tightly that it communicates with its own brain and it tells it how to act. It doesn't need to learn anything. It's born knowing. So, yeah.
There's a couple more questions. I know you have to go, Preston and Dolly. I've kept you guys long enough. Let me just get through these last. Everybody else who has not written a question yet, please save it for next time so I can get through the last final ones. This is from Rockstar. Rockstar, also thank you for your super chat. What does the other planet that you visited look like?
Oh, I've been on a few. The planet that I mostly grew up learning on is about 3 times larger than Earth. Its sun is younger than ours, and it is beautiful. It's less gravity. Devil's Tower? That was a tree, and it got sheared off in a wind. That was so bad when the planet did a flop, and it just cut it right off. There are other examples of trees that big on this planet that are, fossilized, okay? These trees there are that big. They're skyscraper big. They're bigger than skyscrapers. They're huge. All their flora, all their fauna is huge. Everything is huge there. The people that live there are the tall grays, and they are tall for a reason. They have less gravity, and they are taller
too, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. So,
Jose Sanchez, Dolly, have you ever seen the insectoid beings, and what is their ultimate role?
I've seen one mantid in my life, and it was during a difficult time for me. I had just had a kidney transplant, and I was staying with my donor. I had a live donor kidney, and they had all gone shopping, and I wasn't up to going out with them, and I stayed back, and it was galing. I mean, just wind you wouldn't believe. And I had the screen door shut, but the outer door, in open. And I was actually talking to Preston on the phone, and I said, I gotta go, something's up. And he's like, what? And I said, I'll call you back. And I hung up, and I'm walking up to the door, and I got my flip phone, which was a Motorola crappy camera, okay? And I'm like taking pictures because it's a little ways away from me. I needed to zoom up on it as best I could to really get an idea until I got to the door. When I did, I saw something hovering above a stump. I'm like, what the hell? And then it stood up 8 feet, all 8 feet of him. And woo! And I was like, oh! And I dropped the phone. I ran into, I had shorts on and a t-shirt. It was cold and windy, barefooted. And I went running for him. Okay. Don't move, in my head. Don't move. I want to talk to you. And he said, he shook his head a little bit, and he turned, and he's leaving. And all I got from him was, we're the guardians. We watch over you. Okay. And he booked it out. I couldn't keep up with him. I just had a kidney transplant. And I was so mad that I couldn't talk to him. Really mad. And I've never seen another one since. And that's one of my goals, is I'm going to go visit them somehow, some way. You watch. I will.
Is the mantises, do they sit where their legs are like an M because they're so tall to fit inside a craft? Because I remember, Preston, you wrote a book, or you meant one of your books, you had the story of a 14, 15-foot tall,
Yeah.
mantis
Remember, the
that was
Talata
working.
can get bigger or smaller. He accommodates me. I can stand up and craft with enough headroom, and so can they, because he pushes out. They all do that. So they can.
The mantids will sit down like that. I've heard that from many experiencers.
Yeah, Tom Reed drew that out, and I had used to have a picture of it right here.
Yeah, it's one of the commonalities. They have really jerky, quick movements. There's lots of little details that I'm like, yes, this person is describing what other people talk about, and they are called the Watchers. This is something that they have told people. This is a term that's been used by many contactees, and it goes into ancient writings even. They watch over everything. They're very, very smart. They're recording and watching everything.
This one is for you, Preston. It's from, I hope I say the name right, Casson Lee LK. Preston, did you ever astral travel lately? Or I guess have you?
Yeah, I learned how to do it back in 1986 or so, and have been doing it regularly ever since. I wrote a book which covered all the way up to 2001, and putting out another book. And yes, it's so much fun. I recently saw my recently deceased nephew. It was very tragic. He passed away this year. Saw him that day that he passed away. I went over to the other side. Yes, I can't wait to share some of the experiences I've had because it is so much fun and so awesome, and the things you can do. I cannot recommend it enough. There's a lot of literature out there. It's not hard to do. This is not a superhuman ability. It's natural. You are doing it every night. Don't get me started. I talk for another hour. Yes, please, I have, and please try. It's so much fun.
Oh, I'd love to have a book of all your travels or a show on all of them. Last two questions I'm going to take from the audience. Let me go back to this the one pre to the last one. Back to the Sasquatch. Coming back and forth from where is the question from Jose Sanchez.
The next dimension up, what we would call the astral realms.
Okay, so not necessarily a planet, but another dimension.
Fourth and fifth dimension,
Gotcha.
Yeah. And other planets.
Right.
Now, name 101, and this is great because this is literally, you have an entire chapter dedicated to this, Preston, of what Dolly was informed. Do the star people have a message for us?
Yes. It is basically this.
Don't screw up basically on this planet anymore. No pollution, no warlike tendencies, right?
Right. Their hope for us, and this is, I'm giving it to you verbatim, their hope for us is that we discover our abilities and that we find a way to communicate with them and join with them. They're open door waiting for us to make contact with them. And you can achieve this by following a few guidelines that they've asked me to give out. And one is clean yourself up, heal yourself, drop all your karma, as much of it as possible. Take better care of your bodies. Don't forget to love one another, because empathy is your key to good psychic ability. Okay. And call out to them, ask them to come and show up. Invite the communication. It's personal. Each one of us has the ability to communicate with them personally, and seek as much knowledge as you can. Okay. Ask questions. They'll answer.
I'm going to start. I was actually given a book. It's an ebook, and it's called How to Make Contact with ETs in 30 Days. Also, the person who owns Stardust Ranch, I'm sure both of you heard it, right? Preston, Stardust Ranch, like Skinwalker Ranch. He's invited me to come there. I haven't spoken to him in the last 9 months, but part of me is very fearful because, if they're able to go deep into my subconscious, I'm sure if they wanted to show my fears come true, they would. Because he said, I don't know if it's something malevolent that's happening there. It's
okay. I don't know what Stardust Ranch is. Inform me, please.
Oh, okay. Stardust Ranch is something. I don't know if it's a Stargate or what, but it's an actual horse ranch. And
where?
In Arizona. Yeah. Okay. And the current owners talk about cattle mutilation, the multiple.
Okay. You gave me enough information. All right. I want you to understand something. The reason that ET wants you to contact them is that your discovery of them is imperative. You'll know the truth of them as you discover them. Okay. They have no desire whatsoever to go into your mind and reap out everything about you or to use it against you in any way. They have a very high moral code of ethics, and they would never do that. And if you're told that you have to give somebody permission to contact you and that they're going to touch you before they do it, run, don't walk, get the heck away from it, because that is a demon. That is demonic. Don't do it. Okay. ET will talk to you, but you have to open your own mind, your own ability, and ask the question, and it will be real to you. You will know the truth when it happens. Okay.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the D word, Dolly, because I've heard that not just of Stardust Ranch, but of
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of malevolent things that happen,
Yeah.
including people that get hurt. Okay. Anybody who did not ask a question in this time, I do apologize, or didn't get their question answered in this time, I do apologize, because we've gone over the time that I promised our guests we would. Remember, one lucky person will get the signed copy from Preston Dennett. What I'll want you to do again is, if you leave a comment, hit subscribe, notifications, and a like, and take a screenshot of that, send it to Pam Vrettenberg, or inform me on the next stream, which is when I'll announce the next winner. And if you can't get a hold of Pam, I'll put her email in the description below. And outside of that, thank you both for joining me. I've definitely subscribed to Preston's channel, and I'm going to give it to both my guests real quick to talk about where you can find them, where you can see them, and they'll both be back for sure. So go ahead. We'll go with ladies first. Dolly.
Well, right now I have a YouTube channel, and I mostly have films of my photography of Talata and ETs in general. I'm in the process of moving right now. And when I'm done, I'm going to start putting up videos on my my YouTube channel. And I'm going to start addressing everybody's questions. I do watch the show after I go through the questions, and I write them down so that I can talk to that person somehow, get the information out. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm already getting ready to start putting on film for people. And I'm going to start teaching you how to use your psychic abilities. I want to do that. I do CE5s. I've been in CE5 groups in Georgia and whatever. And we always took the time to work on our psychic abilities every time. And I want to do that. That's so important. It's, this is the way I want to help.
Yeah, and you know what? I can't wait to actually see some of that. And if you recall, everybody, I mentioned this. Blake and Brent from Third Phase of Moon were in the chat, and they did mention that they just spent, I believe it was 2 weeks at a CE5 event with Greer. So that is documented, which you'll see at some point in time when the movie comes out in Prime. Preston, we have a website, YouTube channel, 29 books and more, and you speak a lot from a lot of different places. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, just punch my name in the internet. Preston Dennett should take you to my website and YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm doing social media as best as I can. And yeah, this is an important subject. I really appreciate the opportunity, John, for having us on here, Dr. J. Because yeah, it's important.
Of course.
And I would just encourage people to drop their fear and look to yourself for answers, not the government, and recognize that yes, this is a real phenomenon. The ETs are there; they are real. You might not believe it, but the day is coming that everyone will know.
Amen. And I hope that day comes soon. With that being said, everybody, we'll catch you on the other side. My guests, stand by for a quick second.